Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to cover one of the most important topics of JavaScript, which is variables. So coming to the variables, it is basically the most important fundamental concept of any programming language. So basically in programming, we use variable to store any data, any sort of data temporarily in the computer's memory, right? So we store data somewhere and give it a name, and with this name, we can call that data and we can read it in the future. So just to give an example, right now, let's say if you have your computer, you're creating a folder, you're opening the folder, and then we are naming a folder, and then we are going inside the folder, we are creating any sort of file. Just to give you an example, like a notepad file or maybe a Word document. Then we are saving it and then we are coming back out of the folder. So basically, we are storing some document inside the folder. In the same way, with the use of variable, we are saving or storing the data and then naming it so that we can call it by using that name in the future. All right. So just to give you another example, consider an empty box, right? And what we put inside the box is the value to the variable, right? In this example, variable is basically the name or the label on the box, right? And with that label name, we can call the variable so that we can get to know the value which is in the box. All right. So so far it should give you a good picture of what is variable about. All right. So now earlier, like before ES6, we uses the keyword which is var to declare the variable name, right? But there are some issues with var variable which we are going to discuss in the upcoming sessions for sure. So let me give you some picture in like in today's world how we call the variable and how we name it, right? So in the previous sessions, I have showed you how we can create the basic HTML file and then link it, right? By using the script keyword and then putting some information console.log and then put some string inside it, hello world, and then displaying it. If you can see here, the exact message it shows up here, right? So let me help you in understanding how we can uh, name the variable, how we can call it in JavaScript. All right. So let me just remove it. So as I said earlier, we used to use the var keyword, right? But now in today's world, we are going to use let keyword. Okay, let keyword followed by let me take the basic example to give you the overall picture of it. So now let followed by name. So this is the variable name. So inside this, it should have the value which is someone's name, correct? So basically what we are doing here is we are creating the variable with the name, right? And we are storing some sort of value inside it. So what could be the value? It could be your name or someone else's name, right? So for now, let's not put the value now, okay? And then just console.log name, right? And then click on save, right? If you refresh it, if you can see here, it says undefined, right? What does it mean? It means we have not defined the value to the variable name, right? Let's do that now, okay? Now looks like you're understanding what I'm trying to say, right? So always like use single quotes or maybe you can use double quotes, but I prefer using single quotes, so you can just go with the flow. So let's name it as John. Click on save. Now let's go back and see. See, earlier it was showing undefined because we have not defined the value to the variable name, right? Now, since we have defined it, if you can see the name John, it shows up, right? Now let me show you or give you some information on the rules and regulations of variable, right? In what way we need to type it, or if we have any sort of conditions. So let's say, to give you an example, somewhere you're creating any password. So password will have certain conditions. You have to use some uppercase values, numeric values, some special characters, right? So that you can make the password strong, right? So now, in the same way, we have few conditions to create a variable, right? Variable names. So this is how it should be. So to give you uh, some examples or some things like what we can consider when we are naming a variable, right? We cannot directly pick any random name out of the blue to name the variable name, right? It should be making sense. All right. So the first would be it cannot be a reserved keyword. What does it mean? So now if you can see in JavaScript, let, right? This is the reserved keyword. We cannot use let as the variable name. There is one more variable name such as if, else. So if we use instead of name if and then use control S, as you can see, it is giving us errors, right? But if you put it back as name, now it looks good. So the terminal itself will give us a hint if uh, if there is any reserved keyword and which cannot be used. So in that case, we need to use or come up with some other variable name, right? Now, the second would be it should be meaningful variable name. Okay, so this is something which will happen most of the time with the developers. What they usually do is instead of name, what they do is while creating a code or writing the code, they just name it as A or B or C or A1, right? But with this, if this is the code read by some other developer which have not created it since the beginning, he won't be able to understand what exactly the variable names by looking at A1. Okay, but if you put as name, at least the developer will be able to read the code, right? So it should be a readability issue if you don't name it. So always this is a good practice to have the variable name which should be meaningful, right? Great. And the next one would be it cannot start with a number, such as, let's say, one name. Again, if you can see, if someone tries to put as one followed by name, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any meaning, right? So again, it goes back to the second condition. What we have, it should be variable name, correct? So this is something which we have to think about it. We cannot start a variable name with a number, all right? And again, it cannot have, it cannot contain spaces or hyphen, right? So let's say if you're typing first name, you should be using camel case notation. So it should be like first name, no spaces, right? So this is the by default choice what we should be using it. If you're using two words, then make sure the first letter of the first word should be lowercase. The second, um, for the second word, the first letter should be the uppercase. All right. Next condition. It is case sensitive, right? It means if you see this condition, first name. So if we use first name vs first name. So these are two different variables, right? So always it is wise to follow the camel notation so that we don't mess with these different concepts, right? One last thing, we always have to declare the variable uh, in one single line. All right, one variable should be one line, the second variable should be in the second line. Let me give you an example. All right, so declaring each variable in each single line. So let me give you an example for this. All right, so we are declaring the variable let, right, first name equals John, comma, last name equals Wick, right? So this is not how we should be declaring the variables. If you're using the let word first name, then last name, and we are differenting, we are making a separation by using the comma, right? So instead of this, what we should be doing is we should be using something like this. Let first name John, let last name equals Wick. So this is how we should be declaring the variables, one in single line, right? So that uh, anyone who is reading the code will have a better understanding. Okay, so we have two variables, correct? All right, so this is what we have for let variable. Let me put some light on the constants, right? So there are two types of variables here, let and constants. Let me just put some light on constants, and then I'll let you know what is the difference in between this, right? So coming to constants, right? All right. So in what situations we can use constants? Let me put some light, okay? So if you're using let, right, academic, right, percentage. So we are trying to calculate or some sort of academic percentage. We are declaring the variable. Let academic percentage is the variable name equals. Usually these numbers will be in the percentage, but let me put some dot values here. Okay. All right. So here and then academic percentage equals 1. Then console.log, right? Academic percentage, control save. Let's go back and see. What do you see here? Number one, let me go back into the code and explain you line by line. Okay. Now we have declared the variable academic percentage and we have given the value as 0.3. Next, in the second line, if you can see, we have asked the system to change the value to 0 point from 0.3 to number 1, and then we have declared it, but we have logged it console.log. So if you can see here, it took the updated value, right? So whenever if we tries to update the value, what let keyword does is it will let us change the value from 0.3 to the updated value what we have mentioned. But let's say if we have certain conditions in real world or for real applications where we do not want these values to be changed, right? In that case, what we have to do is we have to use the keyword const. Let me click on Control S and then let me go back. If you can see, we are getting an error. It says assignment to constant variable. And here, if you can see, it is pointing us to this, right? Line number 17. What does that mean? So in this case, we are not supposed to change the value. So if you remove this, right? Control S. If you go back, when you go to console, it shows 0.3. So we use constant in those conditions where we do not or we are not supposed to change the values. If that will happen, it will impact the whole code and the performance of the applications. It will come up with bugs, correct? So In this case, we use constants, but in case if we can or if we need to change the value, then we use let. If we are not supposed to change the value, we use const. Right? So this is it for today we have for this video. So hopefully you are able to understand what variables is all about and what let does and what const does and what is the difference of it. Hopefully I'll come up with some more interesting sessions and I'll be making some short videos for easy explanation. But for this, I would definitely need your support. So please support my channel. Please do subscribe only if you like my content. All right. Thank you so much.